Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, everybody, I am back. Good to be back. I do want to continue the conversation on college hoops, and what I want to do is this, is that, look, we talked a lot about portal, all that stuff over the course of the spring, but as far as college hoops is concerned, and we obviously will get to college football, we'll start to ramp up the football coverage as we get closer to the season, but as it pertains to college hoops, we're finally starting to get closure and starting to get a look at what these rosters for 2022-2023 could actually look like. Now, admittedly, there are still a few guys in the portal, Tyrese Hunter, Patrick Baldwin, a couple guys that could be difference makers. There are quite a few players that are still testing the NBA draft waters. Off the top of my head, Drew Timme, Shaedon Sharpe, I guess by technicality, is Dalen Terry from Arizona. But for the most part, most of these rosters are mostly set, and I do think we can start to look ahead to the 2022-2023 college basketball season. And it's not just me who thinks that we can start to look ahead to the 2022-2023 college basketball season, but also our partners at DraftKings as well. Because earlier this week, DraftKings did update their 2023 national title odds, so basically their national title odds for next season. And with rosters mostly set, what I did on Wednesday at Aaron Torres Online was I did put out an article with all of the updated national title odds. And what I decided to do was go ahead and turn it into a segment here for the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. That is right. This is what we're going to do. We are going to look at some of the big name programs, the Dukes, the Kentuckys, the Kansases, the Arizonas, the Gonzagas, the UCLAs, etc., and go ahead and look at their updated national title odds and do something that I did during the college basketball season, which is basically tell you whether they're a good bet or not. What we're going to do is we're going to go good bet, bad bet, or stay away. Essentially, if I was in the sports book or if I had my DraftKings Sportsbook app on my phone, would I be comfortable betting this? Would I stay away? Or is it just a flat-out bad bet? And I think it's a fun way, and this isn't just for a gambling crowd. I think it's a good way to kind of look at the season ahead. But this is what I want to do. I want to look at about the 8 to 10 biggest teams. Let's get into it. Let's look at the best and worst bets for the 2023 college basketball title odds. All of these odds, again, via FanDuel Sportsbook, or via DraftKings Sportsbook, excuse me. First off, let's start at the top. The co-favorite in the DraftKings Sportsbook is Duke at 10-1. And let me just say, that's a bad bet. And that's not a knock on John Shire, and this isn't an anti-Duke thing, and oh my God, Duke is so overrated, and I hate Coach K. No, that's not what this is about. But what this is about is the reality that we're betting on national championship odds. We're not betting on to make the tournament, to win the ACC, to go to the Final Four, whatever. We're picking the teams that we believe can win the national championship, and it's not to say that Duke can't win the national championship, but what I will say, it's going to be pretty tough when you factor in that they have a first-year, first-time head coach, and essentially they'll very likely only return one player from last year's Final Four team. That was Jeremy Roach. Now, to Jeremy Roach's credit, he got a lot better as the season went on. Also, Trevor Keels is testing the NBA draft waters. It's at least possible that he comes back. And it's worth noting when it comes to Duke, they do have the number one ranked recruiting class in the country. Dariq Whitehead, a wing. Kyle Filipowski, a big. Derek Lively, a true center, shot blocker, rim protector. I just don't think this is a good bet. Now, look, as the season goes on, if Duke struggles at the beginning, then there might be some value betting them as their odds fall a little bit. But when we're talking about May, we're talking about a year from now, we're talking about John Shire as a 34-year-old first-time head coach with a roster that is almost exclusively going to feature freshmen. And I know they added a couple guys in the portal, veteran guys, whatever. It's going to be a young team with a young head coach. This just feels like a bad bet to me. If you like Duke, if you think they can win it all, wait till the season starts. Maybe the odds drop a little bit. But to me, this is a bad bet and an absolute stay away. Speaking of stay away, the co-favorites in the DraftKings Sportsbook are, drumroll please, 10-1, the Kentucky Wildcats. And to me, this is just a flat stay away. What I'll say about Kentucky is this. I do think that some of the negative anti-John Calipari vibes are a little bit unfair. I mean, they were basically a top 10 team all year with the National Player of the Year that finished second in one of the toughest conferences in college basketball despite a million injuries. So everybody's tearing down Calipari, and you got to get rid of Calipari, and he's not the answer. I don't think he was quite as bad as everybody's making him out to be. And then that includes myself. I mean, I probably overreacted the day of the St. Peter's game as well. I'm not sitting here saying that I'm on my high horse and so much better than you, and I've never criticized John Calipari. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, this just feels like the one I don't know that I would personally bet it. I think the John Calipari, got to get rid of Calipari stuff is a little bit overrated, but it also feels like, to me, this is one that you probably just stay away from. I like Oscar Tshiebwe. I don't think Sahvir Wheeler is as bad of a point guard as people say, but he does need to be able to stay healthy, stay in shape, and limit turnovers. And when you're betting on a team to win the national championship at the odds that you have Kentucky currently at, I just don't know that's where I want to put my money at. Now, I do like the other pieces around those two. If C.J. Frederick is healthy, he is awesome. Antonio Reeves, really talented player from Illinois State. And I do think some of the returnees, Jacob Toppin, as well as the freshmen like Chris Livingston and Cason Wallace, have a chance to be really good. I think Kentucky's going to be in the hunt for an SEC title. I think Kentucky's going to be in the hunt for a really high seed. I just don't think at 10-1 there is much value on betting on this team. Another one that if you really like Kentucky, I think you can wait until the season starts, potentially get better odds. You know who is a good bet, though? Kentucky and Duke are the co-favorites right behind them at 11-1 plus 1,100 according to the DraftKings Sportsbook. It is North Carolina, and that is a bet that I like. And the reason why is pretty straightforward. This is a team that went to the national title game, lost to Kansas, easily could have won that game, and has 4 starters coming back this season. Now, a couple things. I know what people are going to say. Oh, they just got hot in the NCAA tournament, and if they didn't go to the Final Four, you wouldn't have da-da-da-da. First of all, it wasn't just the Final Four thing. They went 11-2 in their final 13 games. I believe it was 16 of their last 19 or something like that, dating back to the first Duke game early in the season when they got blown out in Chapel Hill. This was a team that didn't just get hot in the NCAA tournament. They were playing well late. That includes a dominant win over Coach K at Cameron Indoor to end the regular season, into the ACC tournament, into the NCAA tournament, where they beat some really good teams, including the defending national champion, including Duke, and had Kansas absolutely on the ropes. I know they're replacing Brady Manick, and they're going to have to find a replacement, but the 4 starters back, listen, the bottom line is if you just look at college basketball, if you just look at the teams that had success this year, including Carolina, by the way, but Kansas, Villanova in previous years, Virginia, it's a lot of teams that were right on the cusp, that couldn't get over the hump, that the following year returned a big chunk of their core and ended up breaking through. Now, I do believe with one scholarship left, Hubert Davis is going to be both picky, but he is ultimately going to end up with somebody. But at 11-1, I like those odds. I would grab Carolina while you can, because they're only going to continue to go down as the season gets closer and as the season actually starts. Staying on the same train, you know who I don't like at 12-1 in the DraftKings Sportsbook? The Kansas Jayhawks. First of all, there's a possibility that Kansas might not even be eligible for the NCAA tournament. But beyond that, I just don't know. Bill Self is an all-time great, and people could criticize Bill Self for a lot of things. That dude always has his team ready come the start of the season. But we're talking about a guy 20 years at Kansas, 4 Final Fours, 2 national championships. That's a fine resume. There's nothing wrong with it, but that also doesn't scream, he's going to go to back-to-back Final Fours and win national championships, assuming he's even eligible to get into the NCAA tournament this year. This is not Jay Wright going to 3 Final Fours in 6 years. This isn't Coach K in the early 90s going every single year. It's really hard to get to the Final Four, and Kansas is not a program that's going to rip off 3 and 4 years, 4 and 6 years. That's just not who Bill Self has ever been. On top of that, there's still some uncertainty with their roster, Christian Brown, Jalen Wilson. If those guys decide to come back, that feels like a little bit of a different deal, but to me, I just don't know that I like these odds, especially with the fact that Kansas is going to be possibly ineligible for the NCAA tournament. Even if they are eligible, you're asking a lot to replace your best player in Ochai Agbaji, your best big man in David McCormick. Now, the opposite could be true as well, that you could pick up somebody in the portal. Kevin McCullough, the guard from Texas Tech, is down to Gonzaga and Kansas, as well as potentially considering the NBA. Tyrese Hunter considering Kansas. I just don't know that I like these odds at this number. I just wouldn't bet it myself. 13-1. You know who I would bet, though, is the Houston Cougars. Now, I will say, I think the reaction to Houston is a wee tiny bit overrated right now. I mean, I really do think it's just a tiny bit overrated. The bottom line is when I look at Houston, I've seen them number 1 in some polls, number 2 in some polls. I have them like 6 or 7. And it's for kind of a weird reason. First of all we ever talk about in the media is they were down their 2 best players this year, Tremont Mark and Marcus Sasser, and end up in the Elite 8. What I would note is, 1, those guys got to come back healthy. Marcus Sasser is currently testing the NBA draft waters. But 2, they also, right now, their front court's still a little bit thin, and I still think a piece or 2 away before the season starts. And so to me, it's not that I don't love Houston the way that others do. I just think I still need to see what their complete roster is going to look like. But with that said, 13-1 I think is about the best number that you're going to get. Once the season starts, they're going to start beating teams really bad, and that number is going to keep going down. If I was you, I would go ahead and grab that number 13-1 right now. Houston, 13-1. I believe that is a good bet. Speaking of good bets, 14-1. How about those Arkansas Razorbacks? Woo, Pig Suey can't stop the Big Pig invasion. Can anyone stop the Big Pig invasion? And the answer is obviously no. When I look at what Eric Musselman's done, it's incredible. Musselman has rebuilt this program time and time again. Number 2 ranked recruiting class coming in. Worth noting, Nick Smith Jr., the star of that program, recently updated to the number 1 player in the high school class of 2022. So you talk about a major, just a class. I don't want to say it's going to change the trajectory of the program because they've been to back-to-back Elite Eights, but just a difference-making group that could potentially come in, push them to a Final Four, maybe a national championship, not that far from Arkansas, in the city of Houston, in the state of Texas. So when I look at this team, I see depth, I see balance. What's interesting about them, we're still trying to figure out what's going to happen with Jalen Williams, but when I look at them, I see a bunch of really good freshmen. I see a coach that always gets his group together by the end of the season, and I do see some key veterans as well, even if they're coming through the transfer portal. Now, they do return Devo Davis. They do return a couple guys, even if Jalen Williams doesn't come back. But then on top of that, you're talking about Jalen Graham, forward from Arizona State. Trevon Brazil, the forward from Missouri, who a lot of people like. The Mitchell twins, obviously, are coming in from Rhode Island. I really like this Arkansas team. The one thing they didn't have last year was rim protection. They're going to have that. Arkansas 14-1, I do think is a steal. Good bet for sure. Bad bet, Michigan at 15-1. And listen, I love Hunter Dickinson. He was my preseason National Player of the Year this previous season, so it shows you how much I like him. And this guy is just a double-double machine down low, deserving of all the praise that he gets, and I'm really excited that him, Armando Bacot, Oscar Tshiebwe are all coming back to play college basketball next year. At the same time, look at the guards around him. They just got a transfer from Virginia named Princeton, named Jalen Llewellyn, really good player, but in the process, they lost a guy named Frankie Collins who was playing really well late who decided to transfer. 2 of their other best players, Moussa Diabate and Caleb Houston, are currently testing the NBA draft process. And so to me, without those guys, Michigan definitely is not winning the national championship. But even with them, I'm not sure. If you love Michigan, if you're a Michigan fan, if you're listening in the state of Michigan, probably worth waiting to see what's going to happen with those guys. And if you want to throw down a little bit of money because you love the team, go ahead and do it. But to me, that is definitely a stay away, if not an outright bad bet. You know what I actually think is a pretty good bet, though, at 16-1? This, again, according to the DraftKings Sportsbook, I think UCLA at 16-1 is a good bet. And I know what people are going to say. They lost Johnny Juzang, and I know it's going to be controversial because I think they have a chance to be better without Johnny Juzang. And that sounds crazy, but first of all, they are returning Jaime Jaquez, their second leading scorer and leading rebounder. They're returning a veteran point guard in Tiger Campbell. They're returning some nice pieces around him, including David Singleton, a veteran guard who announced that he's coming back. So a lot of really nice pieces around him. I think Jalen Clark is a sophomore who's going to take a leap. The same time, I think the freshman class is going to really, really, really jive well with the guys that they have. Amari Bailey, we all know who he is. YouTube, Instagram, his mom, she dated Drake there for a minute. Really talented player, though. Really unselfish player. And, I've talked to people who know him. I certainly don't. That say that he's the kind of kid, he's going to come in and follow the leadership of the veterans. Unselfish player, likes to get other guys involved. Adem Bona down low is going to be a difference maker too. UCLA definitely not as big as they have been the first 2 years under Mick Cronin. They lose Miles Johnson, a big guy. They lose Cody Riley, a veteran big guy who could have come back for a 6th year of eligibility, decides not to. To me, I just look at this UCLA team, though, and I say, listen, you look at that top 4, top 5, when you include Jaime Jaquez, an All-American, Amari Bailey, Tiger Campbell, really like this core. I don't love UCLA as like they're definitively going to compete at the top, but at 16-1, I think it's a pretty good bet. Staying in the Pac-12, Arizona to me at 18-1 just feels like a flat stay away. I believe that a lot of their success will depend on the return of Dalen Terry, who's currently testing the NBA draft waters. If he comes back, I do think Arizona could compete for a national championship, and I do think there'd be value at 18-1. At that point, they would return 4 of their top 6 players off last year's number 1 seed. I'd have them somewhere around the top 10 of college basketball. And there's still a possibility, by the way, that Arizona adds a piece or 2 through the transfer portal. And with Tommy Lloyd, you never know. They might be able to get an international guy or 2 that some of us are not focusing on. Same time, though, I sit here and I just say, to me, this feels like a stay away until we get clarification on Dalen Terry. Without Dalen Terry, I don't know that they can win it all. With Dalen Terry, though, I do think that he's kind of one of those guys that has a chance to really break out next season and have a chance to be really, really, really successful. Arizona is a stay away to me. I know who's a bad bet, at least right now. Gonzaga at 18-1. And I'll say this, it's kind of jarring to see Gonzaga at 18-1 in these odds. Gonzaga is a team that basically for the last 2 seasons, the 2020-2021 COVID season and the 2021-2022 season that just completed with Chet Holmgren and all them, they were basically the favorite for the last 2 seasons. And so to see them at 18-1, probably about 9th or 10th in the odds, is kind of jarring. But I don't even think they have very good value. Drew Timme right now is testing the NBA draft waters. We'll see what he ends up doing. But if he does not come back, that is a very thin roster without very much around him. If he does come back, could they compete? Absolutely. And I do think it depends on if they go out and get another guard in the transfer portal. Right now, their 2 guards are a bunch of sophomores, Nolan Hickman, Hunter Salas, Dominic Harris, who sat out this year with an injury. Without Drew Timme, I don't think this is a team as a national championship contender. With him, I think they're probably on the fringes of the conversation. They need another guard, Andrew Timme. To me, this is just a flat stay away. Let's wrap with the final 2, both from the Big East. One is Villanova. Villanova at 28-1. Listen, I just think it's a bad bet. You're losing so much from this year's Final Four team that was beat up and worn down by the end of the year. No Colin Gillespie, no Jermaine Samuels. But then on top of that, we all know what the truth is. You lose Jay Wright, maybe the best coach in college basketball. I know Kyle Neptune was with them forever. I know he's a rising star. I know there's a chance for them to be successful. I'm just not putting my hard-earned money on Kyle Neptune in year 1, kind of like John Shire coming in and having immediate success. Villanova is an absolute stay away to me. But you talk about the best value on the board. At 30-1, it might be Creighton in the DraftKings Sportsbook, an absolute great bet. Creighton, the final school that we're talking about today. Really good bet. I've talked about Creighton plenty this offseason, but remember, they made the second game in the NCAA tournament, the round of 32. Easily could have beaten Kansas. They played Kansas tougher than some teams did later in the tournament, certainly the Elite Eight, Final Four. But on top of that, they were down 2 starters in that game. Beat Providence in the Big East tournament, down a starter. Almost beat Villanova in the Big East championship game. So this team was hot late. Obviously added Baylor Shireman more recently, transfer from South Dakota State, who I think has a chance to be really good there. Baylor Shireman still technically testing the draft waters, but I would assume that he is eventually going to come back. So to me, those are my best bets. I would say Duke is a bad bet at 10-1. Kentucky, a stay away at 10-1. North Carolina, a good bet at 11-1. Kansas, bad bet at 12-1. Houston, a good bet at 13-1. Arkansas, good bet at 14-1. Michigan, bad bet at 15-1. UCLA, good bet 16-1. Arizona, stay away 18-1. Gonzaga, stay away or bad bet at 18-1. Villanova, bad bet at 28-1. And then finally, Creighton, a good bet at 30-1. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube channel. Also, make sure to download episodes of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. New episodes dropping every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.